Ready.
All right, I'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks everyone for joining this evening. We'll start off with the first item on the agenda. We have our audit presentation.
Right. Good evening. I'll be brief. We just met with a select group of the board and went into a little bit more depth, so I'm really here to just kind of give you an overview of the results of the audit. So my name is Chris Healy. I'm an audit partner at Mengel Metzger Barr, or MMB for short. You engaged us to perform the external audit for June 30, 2025. We're in draft form. I expect we'll be finalizing the reports here before the end of the week. And so we expect to issue an unmodified opinion, which says that we believe your financial statements do present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the district. As part of that process, we're using our professional judgment. We're developing a risk assessment and designing and performing our procedures to be responsive to those risks. We're not providing absolute assurance, so that means we're not looking at everything that happens. It's really targeted. We believe everything that we did provides sufficient basis for that opinion. We'll also issue a separate report related to compliance and other matters that's required in accordance with government auditing standards. Really, that lets you know that we consider your internal controls both over financial reporting and compliance, not to provide an opinion, but to consider those as we plan and perform our procedures. But we do report anything that we deem to be a material weakness or significant deficiency. So we have two items in that report. The first relates to noncompliance, which is your 4% real property tax law limitation. So you were at 22% at June 30, 2025. That was about 14 million over that limit, which I know we've talked about for the last several years, in this setting, that the district has just made a conscious decision to retain additional unassigned fund balance, so that as the COVID-related funding and some of the other funding starts to wane off, you still have access to those funds without needing to tap into reserves, which are really set for very specific items. But it is non-compliance with the law, so we're required to report that. And then the second is related to adjustments that we made as part of the audit process. So some of those adjustments are adjustments that we were engaged to help with, but because of the nature, we're required to report those. So we do have a finding related to that. The last report we actually cannot issue yet, which is related to the uniform guidance, which is a single audit. OMB has not finalized the 2025 compliance supplement, which is really what tells us what we have to look at. We have a draft version that we're told is they're not expecting to make significant changes to, but we're not allowed to issue that report until that guidance is finalized. So that report will come as soon as that OMB compliance supplement is finalized. We'll regroup with Kathy and the team and move to finalize that report. Again, we're not expecting significant changes, but we can't finalize that. At this point, we do have two findings that we believe we will have to report. One is related to verification of checking vendor suspension or debarment. So there is some activity with that. You rely on BOCES to an extent, but really the district's required to maintain documentation that vendors used for federal programs are allowed to participate. We did check as part of the process. You didn't pay anybody who was ineligible for that, so there's no actual non-compliance. It's really just a matter of documenting and retaining that. And then one other finding related to the final cost reports related to some of the education stabilization funding not agreeing or lining up with the underlying financial statements and general ledger package. Those have been appropriately reflected as liabilities in your financial statements, but are differences to what was submitted to the state. So those two items there. And then last, we did audit the extra classroom activity fund. That's on the cash basis of accounting. We expect to issue a qualified opinion, and really the qualified opinion relates to the fact that because of the nature of the cash and how the money gets to the bank, there's really no effective controls to ensure that everything that should be collected actually makes it to the bank. So that's a pretty standard qualification at this point in New York State. Most firms are expressing that same opinion. So other than that, we really only had some recommendations related to best practice in accordance with SED guidelines. But again, extra classroom activity funds are student involvement, and we typically have a few recommendations in that area. So that's the summary. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any. Otherwise, appreciate your time, and thank you to Kathy and the team for your work and help through the process. And that's really all I have.
Thanks, Chris. Any questions?
All right.
Thanks.
All right, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.
All right. Next item is capital project update.
Good evening, everyone. So you notice in front of you should look very familiar from what was presented the last time we were in front of you. This is the list of priorities that have been discussed for the future capital project. I can answer any questions we have on this list, but really tonight we want to focus on the resolutions that are later in the board agenda. So I know there's been some discussions at the last board meeting and beyond, turf versus natural over at Husky. So I think that's the big question here. We don't need to answer that question today, but we do need to move forward with the timeline of the capital project to be able to be on track for a vote in December. So today the recommendation, working with the financial advisors and the rest of the team, is to go out for the full amount. So the full amount being the list of 1 through 3 priorities at the top, as well as the 2 alternates listed at the bottom, which is the turf field at Park Terrace. That way we get voted on, we get approved for the full amount, and then that gives us some time in between to decide if we want to move forward with natural sod or the artificial turf at Husky. And the way that the resolutions are written is we do have that ability to make that decision even after things are passed today. So again, that is the bulk of what we need to do at this meeting to keep the project online or on its timeline for a December vote.
The total aggregate cost of the project that we're asking the board to vote on tonight is $40,193,896. Of that, there would be a bonded amount of $37,608,896. And there would be $2,585,000 that we would ask to be transferred from fund balance into the project. This project allows the community to stay tax neutral, so there is no increase in taxes for the community to vote positively on this project. And the way that was handled was by the transfer of funds from fund balance into the capital project, keeps it a tax neutral project, which we're hoping your community will come out and support once it's on the ballot.
So just to touch on, so if the opinion was we move forward with artificial turf, right, we continue down with that full dollar value, but we still have line items in the budget for additional upgrades throughout the site of Park Terrace. So if we were to go with natural, those line items would increase, right? So if we went with natural, we'd spend less money on the field, but more money on the surrounding site work in the area. But even with the turf included, we do have a raw cost of about $1 million. If you look across it at the last item on the Park Terrace, it adds up to about $2 million of work still included if we do artificial to do parking lot, parent drop-off, and additional infrastructure work on this site at the what we'll call the upper area of Park Terrace, as well as some work at the lower area and the entrance of Husky Field. It does also include the full fencing replacement. So either way, we're doing the full fencing replacement, that's a separate line item. So all of the fencing around Husky is included, whether we do artificial or natural. So those are that are separated out from the alternate price for artificial versus natural. Any questions on that I can answer? And anything on the list or obviously on that
I
bottom
was
line.
wondering how good your vision is to be able to see all this.
I can see it fine.
I look like dots to me.
God, for rifle.
I know, I should have done it. My contacts prevent me from being able to see it.
Again, this is identical to what we shared the last time, we went through line by line, but we can, like I said, answer any questions you have on any of these.
I'll just say this, I've had a lot of conversations with board members and community members, and, obviously, I think, I'll say what I think. I think this is a great opportunity, for this district to really build what could be an absolute showpiece and a community center. Right now, it's a field that you gotta stay off for practice. We use it for graduation, about 4 varsity home games, some JV games. This could become a Little Huskies draw to grow that program. Other sports could use that field. More than just graduation, you can have your elementaries using that field. It's playable and usable as soon as the snow melts. But having it as a community and a regional showpiece and something to be as an attractive feature for this district, I think it's a golden opportunity to build a state-of-the-art facility. We have the locker rooms, we have the revitalized concession stand. If we do parking lot work to build, so people can park closer to Husky Field, and redo that turf for the football team, baseball team, Mike and I said, or he talked to me about, you could paint lines that washes away with rain, if you want to have special events, other sporting opportunities. We can do it without impacting the taxpayers, something that it would be a showpiece of this district for decades and decades to come. I think we'd be crazy not to pursue it. That's my opinion.
If I could just add to the majority of the project is infrastructure related. It's roofing, it's boilers, it's the nuts and bolts that keep your investment that you've made and the community's made in your buildings, to keep them updated and maintained and under warranty. Of the total $40 million project, the middle school alone has $11.5 million of roof replacement in this project. That's a huge number of the 40 million, but that entire roof is coming off of warranty, and it's the building that's left that you're constantly chasing leaks on. That's gonna be handled properly as part of this project, and that's about a quarter of the overall cost. High school has $2 million left of roofing. The past 2 projects, we've done a considerable amount of roofing on that building. There are a few areas that are left to do. When this capital project is over, every building district-wide will be under a current warranty for the next 20 years. Some of them are 10 years into warranty because we started replacing them 10 years ago. But it's taken a long time for the community to get everything back up on warranty. And once we're there, we need to maintain it. So you're not paying every time there's a roof leak, you're calling in warranty claims. It's critically important. Same investment with your boilers, same investment with a lot of the door hardware that we're replacing in this project. It's safety, it's security, it's investment, and protecting your investment that you've already paid for and your community has.
Somebody had brought up to me about equality in Title IX and fields, and I said, well, the current artificial field serves 3 female sport teams and 1 male sports team. And obviously this football and baseball are male sports predominantly, not exclusively, predominantly, but as you said, the field could be utilized for other sports as well. So,
Correct.
I mean, it's not, I don't think there's any concern, or should be any concern about equity if we decide to pursue this. And we're gonna have to do half the work anyway, because that field is completely in need of a whole overhaul for its substrate. So this would be an investment of turfing it and building a state-of-the-art facility. We talked about the lighting. The lighting's good, we did that in the last project, and we can reach it in a future project to do LED lighting. We wouldn't make that part of this, but Bob said we can reach all the lights from outside that fence. So it's not like you have to worry about people driving across the turf field to replace lighting down the road. Obviously, it's something I think that we would go out to the community, and I think there'd be a lot of support. If I'm a young parent in Gloversville, this is something that I could easily get behind. When I look at the facility with Tour Field, I know people who do not want to be able to tour field, just to be frank. And to open that up to utilize for practices for all levels and community teams, you can't destroy it. It's just a regular use.
And Husky Field, as it is right now, is such a fragile ecosystem. Ed, you know as much as anybody at this table, we do not utilize it as much as we could or should. And if it's a artificial surface, sky's the limit. We could have band competitions. I think, Rob, you had when I got here, there was a competition of the field teams with the banners and the guns. I'm sorry, what they're called.
Marching bands?
Entertainment.
It's color guard, thank you. And I remember they used that facility at that time, and obviously with that kind of surface, there wouldn't be any worries about a group like that coming in and destroying the field, so. You heard my 2 cents, and you don't have to, that's not what we're voting on tonight, we're just voting on that dollar amount. If the board decides at some point that you do not want to pursue artificial turf, then that's your prerogative. But if you support the dollar amount, as they just pointed out, there's a lot of boiler work, there's a whole lot of infrastructure stuff. There's not a lot of shiny things in this project, it's pretty utilitarian.
No matter what we do over there, the geographical issue with the heaving in the field, how do we know that's not gonna come back?
So the first part of the process is we would do boring of the field to check sub-base material, density of all the materials that are currently installed there. We would replace whatever needed to be replaced. We'd compact it at lifts to ensure that it's there and it's solid. Whether you go natural sod or turf, we want to be sure the sub-base doesn't move on you,
Right,
because that investment stays, even if you're replacing a turf carpet in the future, or you're doing a lot of maintenance and aeration on natural sod, your sub-base can't roll. The other thing we would be doing, it's my understanding you don't have a significant issue right now with drainage on the field. As part of the project, we're adding a complete drainage structure under the field. So although it isn't a current problem, we're gonna be sure that it doesn't become a long-term problem. And that would happen no matter which surface, playing surface you end up with.
Any other questions or concerns?
For the quote, for the Park Terrace parking, does that mean you guys have started putting together plans on what you wanna do up top?
So once we have
Traffic
the authorization to move forward with the ballot, we're gonna work with our design team to start to put together some renderings. We think it's important that those are shared with both the board and the community who's voting on the project. Whether it's natural sod or turf, it's not about that, it's about the parking, it's about whether or not we add a secondary access road that goes from lower parking towards the road to further separate out. There are a lot of things like that are in flux, but until we know we're going for a vote, that design level of work hasn't happened. It didn't start at Kingsborough either, at this point of the project. We produced graphics, getting ready and getting the community excited about the vote, once the board meeting happened in October of that project.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, the number created here is a lot of square footage, high level dollars, taking the overall, what needs to be repaved. We know there's infrastructure issues up there with some of the site drainage up top that needs to be replaced. We know we're gonna have curbing and striping and all those things of that nature to really make it what we wanna do for parent drop-off. So that's just a high level of, hey, we have to do X amount of square footage, to get to a parent drop-off that's adequate, but we just don't know exactly the details of that. And a lot of time and back and forth, just like it was at Kingsborough, what works the best.
Any other questions? Let them off easy.
Thank you for that.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Next item on the agenda is public comment. Anyone here for public comment this evening? Jeopardy song in my head. Move on. Next is board discussion. We have the Board of Education minutes from the September 8th meeting. Any questions or comments on those? Motion to approve by Kevin, seconded by Rob. All in favor? Anybody, John abstained, right?
Yes.
All right, anybody have anything else for board discussion tonight? All right, move right along You're gonna have to, well, so I can actually read, superintendent's report?
Thank you, good evening. Mike, Bob, and Sydney, I did say you could stick around for my report, but I had capital project discussion. I don't think there's gonna be much of a discussion. So you guys are welcome to leave. You can stay for the vote and, or my report as much as you want, but I don't, it's up to you if you want to leave. Okay. Okay, so Chris isn't here. Chris is representing the district at a dinner where the district's being recognized by Fulmont, for the Head Start program for the partnership. So I couldn't make it obviously for the audit and the board meetings, so that's where Chris is. He will probably come in at some point, but if you look on the next page, you'll see superintendent's conference day agenda. I know the administrative team have been working on. If you have any questions, Chris will be here soon. But, yeah, I or somebody, the administrators over there might be able to answer questions that you might have. This has not gone out to staff yet, but it is ready to, I believe. And it's a lot of good PD, obviously a lot of CKLA work, benchmarks. Number of people are doing various in-house PD opportunities. Brian DePasquale, Courtney Wood. We have Christina's, what's the lady you're working with? Cheryl. Yeah, Cheryl what? Dopperton, thank you. It's about questioning techniques primarily, right, to secondary level. So if you have any questions, let me know. And like I say, Chris should be here at some point in the meeting if you wanted something more specific or detailed. The next sheet is a proposed GESD business operations table of organization. You'll notice it's effective July 27th. So this is something that I think we talked about before. We did just talk about it in the audit meeting that when Kathy retires, and we don't ever want Kathy to retire, but she's threatening us with a date of June 30th, 2027. And if you recall, when our assistant superintendent for business left, we did not replace that person, and Kathy took on a heap of the responsibilities in that position. But when Kathy retires, this would be my recommendation to hire an assistant superintendent for business and operations, replace our treasurer. We currently have an assistant treasurer, right? Deputy treasurer. That position would go away. But that said, as we talked about with the auditors, that adding a senior account clerk to oversee the other two senior account clerks in that office, we think would provide better oversight, give Kathy more freedom to do some of the work that the internal auditors are suggesting is something that really she's spread too thin in some ways, so that the material weaknesses that they find annually would probably be rectified with Kathy not having so much on her plate. And I would have to see her vehicle here on sunny Sundays and sunny Saturdays. Kathy worked very hard. So I think that it would be wise, and we have the position already in our district, the senior account clerk. We hope to fill that by the end of this calendar year. There would be training of Kathy training the person who we think would take over for her as treasurer, that person training the person who would be the senior account clerk, and trickle on down. Kathy retires, you would hire a business official, and then the deputy treasurer position would disappear with it. So you'll see that that's articulated on the back as well, the position eliminated, and probably do a better job if you just read it instead of me confusing you more than speaking to it. Let the words speak for themselves. Again, this is obviously the board's prerogative, but this would be my recommendation for strategic long-term planning for business and operations in our school system. And a post-Kathy world, but she's in Vegas and turning stone, living her best life in retirement. But if she doesn't want to leave, I'd be happy to throw that away. Any questions on that?
You said 2028, right?
29, I think it was. July 1, 2027.
Just get it on the record and we vote it.
But we will have that senior account clerk position probably at the November or December meeting at the latest in front of the board. Any questions or concerns about that plan to better support the business office, which frankly has been running shorthanded for 7 years?
Is that going out for bid soon? Posting for the senior account clerk?
Is it posted yet? And it's not posted, so we can
Need a
put,
salary schedule.
oh, we need a salary schedule, thank you. I need to work with the CSCA.
Okay.
We have developed a salary schedule that I think they will be amenable to, but I haven't had their blessing on it yet. So that is the only holdup, which is me. Capital project discussion? Okay. HFM Regional Priority Review. So this, I think this document's important for you to be aware of. First on top is a table of organization for how HFM BOCES currently operates. You'll see that there's a lot of support there. They do a lot of different things. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know, but that's just kind of a FYI. If you see the various supports that HFM BOCES provides with their table of organization. Really, I gave it to you because I wanted to look at the next few pages. You see their organizational goals, and if you remember our own board retreat, we talked about, building a early CTE program, and that is one of their goals. It's a regional goal that, I think Gloversville was instrumental in helping to bring to fruition. But I think HFM BOCES has done a nice job of articulating their areas of focus. They also had to do it as part of the state's regionalization initiatives. Not regionalization as in like consolidating school systems, but regionalization as in what are we doing collectively as a BOCES to meet the needs of the students and families we serve. So you can see it, student-centered schools, opportunity, access, and support, innovative learning opportunities, workforce development, collaboration and communication, and leadership and advocacy. You'll see under innovation and learning opportunities, the last bullet is build and support earlier CTE opportunities. Obviously, AI is a big push in our region, in our district as well, so that's something else that I think is closely tied to what our own goals are. They're partnering, as I've mentioned numerous times, with Bill Daggett, Successful Practice Network. If you look at the next page, you'll see this was part of his initial proposal, which was adopted by all superintendents in our BOCES. And the 4 sessions that we're doing with Dr. Daggett, focusing on AI, emerging needs. Obviously, he was also our keynote speaker to our own staff day one. So a lot of the work that's being done recently with Dr. Daggett, our entire workforce in Gloversville school systems, heard pretty much verbatim the same message that he delivered in session 1 to the region. Session 2 is focusing on AI tools and strategies. We have an AI committee in-house trying to get more educators to be familiar with it, to utilize it, to recognize the practical uses for educators and students, and obviously to consider ethical considerations. Neuroscience of learning, session 3, he really does a deep dive on the impact of the brain of the youth in our country and what technology is having on children. So when they say children are falling behind, it's because we're doing the same thing we've always done, and the kids are different. That's not disparaging the kids. The kids have grown up with the collective knowledge of the human race at their fingertips, and we're asking them to memorize like we had to. The capitals of the 50 states. They really need to know that. The analogy that I've used is, what phone numbers do you remember right now? I couldn't tell you my 3 kids' cell phone numbers. When we were kids, you knew dozens and dozens and dozens of phone numbers. So that's a good example of how technology is changing neuroscience, and it's important as educators, given that our charge is to educate the youth of this country, we need to be on the front end of it and not have our head in the sand, that the sands are shifting below us. I think a big piece of this challenge, and why I think it's really exciting to be an educator today, is that New York State's recognized a lot of change, and they are changing with the Portrait of a Graduate, that the metrics for determining what a successful high school graduate is are changing dramatically in the next few years. He talked about 3 groups being critical to that: the Board of Education, the community, and the teachers themselves, the educators. And I am confident that the board, community, and our teachers recognize it and are receptive that we have to start doing things a little bit differently. Less siloing of content, more integration, more interdisciplinary approach to building a whole child so that they are collaborators, they're researchers, they're communicators, and it's less emphasis on standardized test scores, test, forget, cram, test, forget. And if he talks about studies where they've taken kids, given them the same exam that they took in June and October, and the percentage of kids failing those exams skyrockets to the majority. The vast majority of kids are literally failing Regents exams months after they take them. That's kind of alarming, because this is the world we've been living in for a long time. So I really appreciate Dr. Daggett and the work he does, and the call to arms in our profession to look at things holistically different than we have for decades and decades and decades and decades. So we'll be working hand in glove, I think Margie's in the room, with the teachers union to talk about what that's gonna look like in the years ahead. There's gonna be a need for us to be nimble and cooperative and flexible as to ensure that this school system is on the front end of this. It's not like the electric bus mandate. I don't care about being on the front end of the first district to purchase electric buses, but we owe it to the kids of this district to be on the front end of the transformation in education that's gonna take place. And I really think it's a great opportunity for a district like Gloversville to dive in both feet, whether it's early CTE combined with a more interdisciplinary approach to learning, more active involvement of the kids, less drill and kill, chalk and talk, testing, and more challenge-based learning, project-based learning. I hate that term, project-based learning, but I like challenge-based learning, experiential learning. I think those are truisms that we need to really dig our hands into and try to get really good at. So that's really why I shared this document, and the other document that I shared is the strategies that really goes into more depth than I just did about what we're doing, why we're doing it, the role AI will play in it. So there's a lot there, and there's not enough time in the evening for me to read this to you, so I won't. But I do ask you to read it, because this is I think the most important work we're gonna be engaged in as a school system for the next 20, 30 years. I mean, I don't know what the future of education looks like, but I know what it looks like right now, and it's high noon for us to do things a little bit differently. And that doesn't mean literacy is not important, math skills aren't important, those are more important than ever, as Dr. Daggett argues, and he's right, because it's gonna be more competitive for those who are good at it. And the truth is, you're still gonna need to be able to understand what you're reading, be able to put proper prompts in. If you're gonna utilize AI to assist you, you need to be proficient in grammar and how to articulate whatever questions you can elicit the response you're looking for. And obviously, if it's the trades that kids are gonna go into, they still need to crunch numbers, be able to offer competitive bids, communicate effectively with clients and other entities that you need to work with in that realm. So I think it's an exciting time. I think it's more relevant to what real learning than I've ever seen in 25 years of education. So we'll see. We were all raised, everybody in this table, and probably like in this room, except our student board member, who was raised in a day and age when it was, take a test, and even she has been too. Study, take a test, pass the course, move on. Study, and a lot of it is direct instruction. I think some schools, and certainly the PTACs, have been working on project-based learning, but those kids were all held to the 5 Regents exams as well. And while they're trying to move in one direction and get kids to problem solve collectively and work on problems, those kids are still being held to those 5 exams, and that's changing. There's kids who say, hey, I want to be a medical doctor, and you're still going to have to probably take a pre-med track, and it's going to require standardized testing for sure, because you want somebody who's very proficient and knowledgeable about various things operating on you. But if there's kids who are going to be making a living, in the trades per se, I'm not sure what standardized testing, even in the current Regents system, does for them. I think we have a number of disengaged scholars in this district because the written word and the current educational climate does not resonate with them. And I'm sure a lot of people who listen to this and think about their own childhood, and they're like, I hated school. Because they couldn't sit still, they didn't want to listen to the teacher opine about what they knew and expect that kid to take copious notes and do well on a standardized test. Does that really have an impact on how effective that kid's going to be in the real world? I would argue no. And so that's why I would argue it's a really exciting time to be an educator. So I think BOCES, to get back to where I started, is spot on with their priorities. And I'm happy to say that, you know, we've been an integral part and partner with them in developing this regional plan for us. Any questions on that? Comments, concerns? Okay, I'm gonna need an executive session to talk about personnel contract negotiations, and that concludes my report.
All right. Anyone have any questions?
Any questions for me?
All right. Move on to the next item on the agenda. We have our elementary and secondary curriculum reports, and I'll turn it over to Brian Pasquale and Christina Weiss. I'll move out of the way.
We'll replace them.
All right. This evening, Christina and I are going to talk about the elementary and secondary curriculum as an overview. Throughout the presentation, you're going to see some pretty similar themes throughout the elementary slides, and I think you're going to see a lot of through lines K-12 and how they align. Dave, I think it was really great that you talked about the regional plan as we kind of came into this presentation tonight, because you'll also see lots of alignment between the regional plan for BOCES and what Gloversville is focused on as well. So at the elementary side of things, obviously our curriculum priorities this year are going to continue to focus on literacy and math, but not just literacy and math. As you can see, at Boulevard specifically, we have an additional focus on the Project Lead the Way through computer science modules. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that's going to look like throughout the presentation. But on the right side of the slide here, you're also going to see student engagement, social emotional learning, and behavior supports, along with our data-driven instruction priorities this year.
At the secondary level, we will be continuing the same priorities that we started last year: common assessments, data protocols, and then goal tracking. All 612 teachers will be aligning their assessments to ensure that our scholars are given access to the same standards at the same pacing, and that we're then able to break down our data to make those informed instructional decisions like we talked about at the end of last school year. Goal tracking is something that I'm working with the building leaders on as well, to ensure that we hold ourselves accountable to that as well. If we're asking the instructional staff to take the time to break down their data, make those action steps that we're aware of when it's taking place, we're having those conversations, which then allow us to give that targeted support that you're seeing on the screen. If we notice that some of our newer staff members, or even maybe our veterans, are having a harder time developing action steps or breaking down their data, we want to make sure we're leveraging resources like Mr. Jarabek and getting that resource where it needs to be most, instead of that overarching umbrella like we did last year. Additionally, this year we will begin student-centered coaching at the middle school, which I think will be a great opportunity for our 6th grade teachers to get very comfortable and familiar with how do I utilize data to make targeted instructional shifts in my classroom to ensure the neediest scholars are getting targeted intervention and instruction in that exact moment. So Courtney Wood will be meeting with the 6th grade teachers once their DIBELS is completed, so that she can review the DIBELS scores with them, talk about data, talk about literacy, and really holistically explain to them how I, as a history teacher, am also responsible for the literacy data of my scholars, and how how can we all come together to kind of make that lift together, because literacy is not just the English teacher's responsibility, it is everybody's responsibility to kind of increase in those areas. Did I go twice?
So on the elementary side of things, our curriculum updates include for literacy, we have version 3 of CKLA. Our teachers have done a fantastic job this year of full implementation in K-5 for our CKLA program. It was not as big a lift as it was in our initial rollout of CKLA, because although there has been some significant changes to the program in a positive way, the front loading of the professional development around the science of reading has really helped support the teachers with a better understanding of how that program works. In doing so, we're looking to focus, of course, on building foundational literacy skills. That does happen both at the primary buildings and at Boulevard. We also, especially at Boulevard, are working more on that comprehension, and throughout the K-5 experience, they are working on their fluency as well. We do have ongoing professional development and coaching. Like Christina said, we do have student-centered coaching and teacher-centered coaching available for to ensure that teachers are ready and able to implement that CKLA with a level of fidelity. On the math side of things, we are continuing with the Ready Math Classroom. That is not a new program, but we continue to refine how we use it. We will see that the professional development that we're focusing on this year around Ready Classroom Math is small group centers. That's really a K-1 initiative. And we're differentiating learning with our Tier 1 instruction 2 through 5. Also, in our WIN program, we continue to do that. We have implemented, as you may have remember from last spring, Boulevard did a lot with the Acadience diagnostic tool to make sure that we have the right students in the right math groups during WIN. That was pushed down into the primary levels, so now all of those students are using the Acadience diagnostic tool so that our WIN groups support those students that are still below grade level, that are on grade level, and that are beyond grade level. Also, the Project Lead the Way is a really great initiative that's happening at Boulevard. It is being launched in our library period from grades 3 through 5. It introduces coding, problem solving, and design thinking. It is a pretty structured program that really digs into a problem solving approach, but doing through the lens of computer science. We did that because our 3 through 5 students were getting a good exposure to technology during that library period with Mrs. Hollenbeck. But this structures it in a way that it will continue the Project Lead the Way curriculum 3-5 and then into the secondary with those secondary Project Lead the Way pathways. That's it.
So at the secondary level, we have a few different curriculum updates or initiatives. The first big one is reading at the middle school campus. This year, the reading model has shifted, so essentially the reading team is now available to one grade level at a time. Historically, all reading teachers were targeting 6th grade to provide that intervention. Now they work as a team and they'll be servicing all 6th graders one period, then they move to 7th grade, then they move to 8th. The rationale behind that was to allow for flexibility and fluidity within those reading groups. So I, as a scholar, now have the ability to transition from reading group A to reading group B to reading group C. And then if something happens and I wasn't quite ready yet, I can go back to B if I need to. So that flexibility kind of models the elementary system and structures that they have based on data. So now when we're giving our regular data assessments, we can respond to that, which historically we have not been able to do. Open SciEd is our new science program at the middle school. It was going to be a 3-year rollout, but we are now in a 2-year rollout. Teachers in both 6th and 7th grade are using a new science program. It's fabulous because what it does is it prepares them to go into the high school and be ready for those new phenomenon-driven Regents exams. The program that we purchased comes with kits that allow students to engage with labs at least one time per week. It's very hands-on, it's developed through the critical thinking model, so Mr. Halloran was talking about getting away from that like sage on the stage or the direct instruction. This is hands-on, problem-based instruction that is going to better prepare the students to enter the high school, no matter what model they're in, whether they're gonna be taking a traditional Regents track or they need to be able to think outside of the box for preparing for life beyond high school. So it's a really exciting new program. We've already discussed the new electives, but I just wanted to talk about, or go back over, I guess I would say, the new electives at the high school. That's a ton of new offerings for our high school students in 1 year. So we have Community Connections, which is actually a science and a literacy integrated course. That is where we are going. That is the portrait of a graduate. How do we make sure that we're giving access to content and curriculum that is cross-curricular and help students understand how they become part of the community that they live in? And that's what that class is doing. It's civic awareness, it's historical projects, so it's really integrating students into our community through the lens of literacy, but at the same time science. It's duly taught by an English teacher and a science teacher. We have 2 new athletic training classes that we're offering, which I think allows students to engage in more topics that could potentially be of interest to them after they graduate, which is hugely important to their ability to make an educated decision about what do I want to be and who do I want to be when I leave here. Same thing with our 2 new art classes. We have a ton of, one of them sitting at this table, who I did not know was an amazing art student until I happened to enter into her classroom and I saw the work that she could do. So we offer these 2 new classes for those scholars that really lean into the arts, enjoy going to art classes, and really kind of a hook, right? We can increase attendance the more we can offer classes that our students love and enjoy. And then learning labs at the middle school, I'm only going to mention them briefly. They are in the process of going through a little bit of an overhaul, I guess I would call it, but Mr. Heiser will be talking to you about that when he comes back to present for the middle school. But that is a huge focus of the middle school campus. I will be a large supporter of that, but Mr. Heiser will be the one driving that ship.
When it comes to professional development at the elementary level, a lot of this started over the summer. We have curriculum week where teachers, many teachers come together focusing on literacy, math, and science. For literacy, of course, with CKLA, we're continuing with ongoing coaching and modeling in classrooms to really support that rollout and making sure that it's smooth. Another component that we use, and Christina was alluding to this as well, is our PLC model. Teachers are involved in PLCs on a weekly basis, both for ELA and for math. That's a really important part of professional development because not only we're looking at common assessments and using data to drive some of those instructional changes, it's really a collaborative process amongst the grade level, and so that's happening in each grade level K-5. When it comes to math, we are continuing with that Ready Math. The K-1 is the small groups and hands-on learning activities. At the 2 through 5 level, we're really talking about differentiating that core 1 instruction. How can we really try to tailor the instruction while sticking to the program to support all levels of learners? And then we dive in even deeper during that win period that continues both in ELA and in math at the elementary level. The really focus areas for professional development in math this year is student discourse. So what conversations are students having about math? And this idea of productive struggle. Productive struggle is really trying to give students some space to try to solve those problems without the initial guidance from the teacher, right? So it's a lot easier for children to kind of follow the flow of a math problem once the teacher already gives you all the steps. But if you have to create those steps on your own, you're really building connections. And then when you're able to talk about those with a productive conversation with your elbow partner, it really goes a long way with kind of creating those connections in the brain. So productive struggle and student discourse are our focus areas in math this year. Again, I can talk a little bit about Project Lead the Way, but there was certainly professional development on a smaller scale with Megan there. But on the social emotional learning, I wanted to spend a moment there. The staff the K2 staff has had some card training, really to support neurodiverse learners. And in the spring, we're gonna be working with the SUN program at University of Pennsylvania, and strategies to support neurodiverse learners and classroom behavior management. One of the things that I've really had some great feedback from our parents during our shared decision-making team meetings was how classroom disruptions can really impact student learning. And of course, we know that to be the case, and we want this professional development here to really support all learners and support teachers so that we have fewer distractions in the classroom. Of course, data-driven instruction is underpinning and foundation of everything that we do at the elementary level. PLCs, using assessment data, really guide our Tier 1 and Tier 2 instruction. That collaborative effort through teacher leaders and with teachers, refine those intervention plans, and the goal setting that they do really aligns with specific goals that we have, like our district literacy goal.
At the secondary level, we will be focusing on increasing engagement through effective questioning. We have Cheryl Dabberton, who is going to be working with us throughout the course of the entire year. Essentially, the focus is how do we increase engagement through effectively utilizing questioning strategies in our classrooms. We heard at the very beginning that the shift is happening in the state with the portrait of a graduate. The expectation is no longer that a child can sit in front of, or will very soon, hopefully, be that they don't have to sit in front of an exam to showcase their knowledge and understanding. In order for us to be able to prepare students for that kind of world, we have to shift the way that we are educating our children, which means how do we actively engage them in the process, not have passive recipients of knowledge. Those two things are not the same. So that is what Cheryl is working with us on this year. All of the areas of focus last year, we learned a lot about John Hattie and his research. So when we were selecting how are we gonna leverage and have an impact, we picked high leverage points. So point 4 is considered the hinge point with his work. That means anything above point 4 has a higher likelihood of making a positive change, with the number one thing being collective teacher efficacy. Meaning if we as a group of individuals believe we can have a positive impact, it will trump everything else, poverty, attendance, everything. So we are being very intentional with doing whole-scale professional development for all teachers 6-12 to ensure they have the same message, that they can get on board with one another, they can support each other, and more importantly, we can support them. The other large PD that is not up here is AI. On Friday, all K-12 teachers will go through at least one AI training. At the elementary level, they will be broken up by group, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And at the secondary level, they'll have 2 trainings on AI. One, on how do I use AI to help guide the common assessment practice. The second, how can I utilize AI to implement the new learning labs. So we are making that effort along with our partners at BOCES to ensure that our staff is up to date on how to utilize it as an effective planning tool, with then the hope of when we're ready, how do we transfer that to the students? So right now we're lifting our staff and their knowledge so that we can then transfer that information to students and get it into their hands, but adults first with that training.
So really, why this all matters, and really this is where it's the tip of the spear, or where the rubber really meets the road. And I wanted to take a moment to look at the district goals and how what elementary work this year around curriculum is aligned. So obviously in goal 1, where we're talking about positive student relationships, strong teacher-student connections, increase engagement, and of course, and foster a supportive school environment. And we're doing that through our SEL curriculum and our refinement of our PBIS initiatives. This helps, obviously, students feel seen, safe, and valued. One component of our social emotional learning is our second step curriculum. At Boulevard, we're actually doing a review of that curriculum now to see if it's still meeting the needs of our scholars. It's a curriculum resource that we've had in place for quite a while. And some of the feedback that we're getting from teachers and from students is that maybe it's not hitting the mark as it used to. So we're doing a curriculum review this year of that social emotional learning curriculum. Obviously, scholastic achievement, CKLA version 3, Ready Classroom Math, Project Lead the Way, all provide high-quality, research-based instruction that really drives academic growth. This data-driven instruction and small group instruction and interventions ensure that we're targeting support for our below, on, and beyond level learners. So, post-secondary and career readiness is certainly not just a secondary concern. We, at the elementary level, are obviously focused on that. One way that we're doing that is through our STEM and Project Lead the Way. But we're also looking at what are the skills that students need to leave elementary with so that they can find success. And that's happening through our SEL curriculum, through the way and the strategies that we're using to teach CKLA and Ready Math, and through those MTSS data-driven processes that are embedded, and like I said, the underpinning of the work that we do. We are developing skills like self-management, goal setting, perseverance, all things that are going to be needed and necessary as they continue on.
So you'll not see District Goal 1 up here for me, establishing relationships. We left that one to the two brand new building administrators, right? So they're focusing on lifting their two campuses, so they will present heavily to you when they come back to present on their buildings. Same thing with the third goal. I did have it up on one of the slides, but that is something that both of them spoke to me about wanting to take ownership of that college and career readiness. So I will touch on it tonight, but just understand that you'll hear a lot more about relationship building and post-secondary and career readiness during the building level presentations. But in terms of scholastic achievement, data has to be at the forefront of all of the decisions that we make. In order to have effective data, we have to have effective assessments. So right now we are overhauling our assessment practices to allow us to have that authentic data that we need. We are strengthening literacy and content instruction through leveraging Courtney and those student-centered coaching cycles, as well as making sure that we're aware of what is happening in all of our classrooms, adjusting programming where necessary, like the science program that we are implementing this year, and also responding to what we know or what we hope to know is coming, which is the Portrait of a Graduate, making sure that we are starting now to look at what offerings do we have at the secondary level, how do we build program at the middle school to ensure that when they enter high school, it is this year's 7th grade cohort that is going to be entering 9th grade under a new set of guidelines. That means we cannot wait for it to happen because the children are already here. So we have to respond now. And then in terms of post-secondary and career readiness, those real-world experiences are really what we're starting to get better at, right? So we have community connections as that kind of foundation course to see how does this work. We're bringing those students into the community as often as possible. I believe they already took one field trip, and they're going to be doing more of those to see what does it look like, how do our students respond to this, and how can we then leverage what we've learned to expand that opportunity for students. Building critical thinkers, collaborators, and problem solvers. Every time we shift program, we want to make sure that those areas are why we are doing it. When we select a new program like the science program, we can no longer just pick, here is a workbook, and here's how we're going to teach it, is what does this do to prepare our children for what they need to know when they enter either college, the workforce, or from middle school to high school. And then foster student-driven learning through questions and discussion. We need our classrooms to be loud, but we need that discourse to be healthy, but on target, right? Not just loud to be loud, but are they engaging in that dialogue that pushes them to new levels of understanding? And then lastly, the vertical alignment piece I think is important. These are the areas as a district that Brian, myself, and all of the building leaders have talked about a lot. Consistent data cycles, informed instruction, embedded questioning, and instruction with fidelity. Every single classroom needs to have this across the district if we're going to make marked improvement, if we're going to prepare our scholars for their lives after graduation, and if we are planning to move to the Portrait of a Graduate, which is on that screen as well. We need to be aware of what it looks like. We need to be developing students that can be first and foremost culturally responsive. That's what they're asking of us. That's at the center of the new graduate. That's pretty much all we know for sure right now with the Portrait of a Graduate, is that is what we have to prepare for. These areas are our focus. Any questions?
Talk about it. Yeah, download. So how are you, that's a massive bear you guys just presented, right? How are you guys keeping your arms wrapped around this whole thing? Like data management, because you're coaching top down, you're coaching leaders, then to teachers, and how are you organizing and managing all of that?
I think for me, I learned a lot last year of how to make it more efficient and effective. So everything lives in one location. So for example, if I need to find, or myself, Cody, Travis need to find when is the next assessment for 6th grade math. It lives in the same place as when is the next assessment for 7th grade math. So making sure we all have quick access so that we can check in and be informed. So every single secondary teacher has a one-stop shop place that they can go to for everything that they possibly need. It was done for the teacher, but also the administrator to make sure that it's not digging through multiple folders like it was last year.
From the elementary side of things, it is a little bit of a different animal. CKLA and Ready Math already put that information in one place for administrators and for teachers. But over the course of several years that we've been implementing our PLCs, our teacher leaders have really stepped up to be fantastic facilitators, and their knowledge around data and assessment has just continued to grow and grow. So yes, we are using common templates, we are using singular spreadsheets that really organize the data. We're also using online data systems that really help us to kind of sort and organize some of all those variety of data. And then it really comes down to those teacher leaders and those weekly PLCs where they're actually engaging with that information. So it's not an assessment that goes on the shelf. It's not an assessment that just goes into a grade book and then you forget about it. We look at where students were really successful or where they had some challenges. And we dig in, we ask why. We make some tweaks and adjustments. We have another set of assessments and we see where we were successful. That data cycle, that process is certainly something that we're refining, but we've had a lot of practice with over the last couple of years at the elementary level.
Thank you.
Great job, guys.
Yeah,
Honestly, it's meaningful, intentional, and the urgency is there, and you did a great job bringing a lot into a concise presentation, so great job. So thanks to the entire administrative team and everybody who's working alongside you.
Thank you.
Next item is our student board member report.
Hello, good evening. I first want to start off with some recent events to highlight in the month of September and then beginning of October last week. First, September 17th, I attended an FM conference, the student board training at HFM BOCES. It was hosted by the Capital Region BOCES in Albany. So it was a Zoom call in a conference room with a couple other schools, Amsterdam, OESJ, and BP to name a few of them. We listened in on a Zoom call just to learn how to be a beneficial student board member because a lot of the schools haven't had required student board members yet. So that's kind of a new mandate that they're going to have for other schools, not including ours, because we've had them already. So in the call, we just learned how to make reports, get feedback from students, and just learn how to be a beneficial student board member for the student body in the high school. Next, we had Club Fair October 1st. It was hosted by the National Honor Society. Myself and another classmate, Alyssa Kosselman, who's also a member of NHS, hosted this Club Fair. There's many clubs involved in the Club Fair. It was in the gymnasium at GHS. There's Student Government Association, Girls Basketball Program, the International Club, Masterminds, and Key Club. I'm hoping to do another one in the semester of the spring. This was kind of aimed towards freshmen and sophomore during their academic support period, and it was mainly just to gain interest and become involved in different clubs and activities because that's kind of my goal. Being here is just trying to gain participation in the underclassmen, so then when the juniors and seniors, they have things to fill out applications and things to just be involved in because, I mean, honestly, there's like no involvement in Gloversville High School as I've seen, so that was kind of our aim. It was pretty successful. We had 30 people join up for Masterminds, which is like an academic quiz bowl that I participate in. So I'm hoping they actually show up to that. Next, I wanted to highlight the World Language Honor Society, Latin and Spanish, now an official club at Gloversville High School. And we want to thank Mr. Went for his generous donation of $400 to the fundraiser that's ongoing this year, and it's going to fund the Raymond Maxon Foreign Language Scholarship that's awarded to a senior at the end of the year in the spring during the scholarship season, so we want to thank you for that. Next on my
Thanks, guys.
next on my agenda, I want to talk about our breast cancer awareness soccer game that we had on the 30th of September. We raised around $1,400, and the fundraiser is going to be donated towards breast cancer awareness and partially towards the Soccer Booster Club. We sold bake sales, raffles, and accessories, and it was a great success. We also honored those who are living on the field. They walked out with our players, and those who have passed we also honored as well. And it was just really nice to have everyone come together for the community. Also, for Teacher Appreciation Night for sports as well, September 30th we had a soccer for the girls varsity. September 27th was the field hockey one, and then football is going to be upcoming October 10th on this Friday. So we just wanted to thank our seniors, or our teachers for everything that they do, and I think that it's lovely that we have these Teacher Appreciation Nights to thank our faculty for everything that they do. Next on my agenda was just our past week of school. It was a very busy week. We had our Spirit Week, which usually doesn't gauge that much engagement for scholars, but surprisingly this year there was a lot more engagement and it was very successful. And then October 3rd, we had the Fall Fun Day, which we were out of class for. We held different events around the school, wiffle ball, bracelet making, spin it to win it, everything like that. It was very fun and successful. And we also had our pep rally at the end of the day, which is fun. All the sports teams did their little skit or whatever. We did a penalty shootout for soccer if you wanted to know. And then following that, we had the homecoming dance on Saturday, and it was very fun. I want to give a shout out to the DJ because he was great. And I also want to thank all the teachers for coming and giving up their time to advise the event. I also wanted to shout out just everyone that was there. Ms. Hazard gave a beautiful balloon backdrop that was lovely. And then on Sunday we had the Powder Puff game, which I got my touchdown even though I can't play. And the seniors did win if you wanted to know. And then lastly, for just sports, I wanted to highlight the bocce team, the new bocce team, Unified Bocce. We've had 3 games so far. We have 2 wins and 1 loss, and our most recent match was this afternoon. I just played and refed our bocce ball, and we've had a lot of good engagement with just helpers coming in and helping all the different players coach, and it was just lovely. So, and now I want to switch kind of over to suggestions and feedback. So, around 2 weeks ago, I sent out a Google form to the student body, just asking if they had any advice, feedback, complaints they wanted to give to me to address to everybody else. I wanted to highlight just a few. So the first thing is going to be salting the hills in the winter just for the groundskeeping. I wanted that to be on the forefront and stay ahead of the game. Some people express that like they're not salted enough just coming up Lincoln, and then they ride bikes and it's just very dangerous. So if that could be on everyone's forefront, that'd be great. Another one I would like to mention is pizza every other Friday. It's becoming a little too frequent, and the 5 days go by a little too quick. So if it could be every other Friday, I know the food service goes through BOCES, and that's who we rely on for the food service. So I know that like students want to have a say in what food is being offered. And I also know that we have held food fairs before. I know my sophomore year we had a food fair. I know it's a lot of work to manage and like get together, but I think that the students really care about what food they're intaking, what they want as meals, so that could maybe happen. And then lastly, it's kind of more for discussion, student parking spots. I know this is something that myself and then fellow classmates also want to do. We want to be able to decorate our individual parking spots and paint them. I know that my advisors would be very welcoming to this idea, and I already talked to Mr. Headwell about it as well. So we wanted to do this in either late October or early November before it gets too cold. We were thinking of Saturday if possible, just because there'd be no traffic. So I'm open to any feedback on that and what we can do to move that along.
Okay. I know some other districts that have done this. I'll get some information from them and how they went about it. I'm not diametrically opposed. Obviously, there's got to be rules. I've talked to fellow superintendents who, you know, they maybe didn't oversee it as much as they should have, and some of the paint that was put down presented an image or a message that wasn't what we really want to promote as a school system, but I think if we solve that, and if the board's in agreement, I don't have an issue with doing something like that. Yeah, but I do think that the kids paid for their spots.
A lot of schools do it as a fundraiser.
Yeah, that's what I was,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Very smart,
Yeah.
yeah.
if it was a, you know, I don't care what the fundraiser was for, if we picked something, but I think that's how a lot of districts have done it in the past. But I will be sure to talk to Mr. Lucas about laying down more salt. I'm sure he's not watching this meeting.
I'm sure he's in here.
Bailey, any way you could share your notes with me, or,
Yeah, of course.
okay, please,
Awesome.
thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Good job.
Do we have a bocce pit at the high school? Do we have an actual
So
bocce
it's
pit?
actually held in Amsterdam. Our home field is Amsterdam today. Mr. Demo, he actually made one with spray paint in our inner track at Gloversville for Fort Plain, just because there was some miscommunications about where it's going to be. So there is one temporary right now inside the track, but our home field is actually Amsterdam.
Let's get Lucas on that too.
I'm sure Mr. DeMagistris did it, because I thought Mr. Lucas was telling me he had to paint it. I like it better, let's give Demo the credit.
I know that they talked about doing one inside the school.
Yeah, I thought he said last week, he had to paint basketball. I won't put my Lucas voice on.
So you know what it's about you.
How many participants do we have in bocce, in the unified bocce?
The helpers are
All together?
More than 20, I think.
That's
That's a
awesome.
good
Great.
number. And
That's
there's a
the
lot more
first year.
helpers than usual, so it's very successful.
Next.
Great.
When's that next game?
That's great.
I think Wednesday is the next home game, but I think we're gonna play
Make sure I don't forget to find out some stuff.
I can send you a schedule.
That'd be great, please. I'd love to check it out.
Awesome.
Is there, well, you might as well, because the time is of the essence, I know it's 82 degrees, but it could be 18 degrees. Any concerns about the painting of spots, if we get the structure right? Obviously, any images that are gonna be painted need to be approved by Mr. Headwell.
Yep.
If he has any questions, he can bring it to me.
Only thought I would have
So
is
right
we
now, they
talked-
don't,
Go ahead. I was saying, the only thought I had is we talked before Preston left about restriping, because there was concerns about the parking lots and who had what spots, and was that all cleared up?
We need to look at what kind of paint, is there permanent paint, you guys might know, be able to weigh in, is there temporary paint you can use that'll last roughly a year? I don't know if you guys wanna opine.
I'm more worried about the parking spots themselves, that was an issue last year, like, they couldn't see what spots were which spots last
So
year.
my guess is, I don't know, I think we should pick an area, a lane
Yeah.
closest to the sidewalk, closest to the pavilion area, if we, to do something like that, because I'm guessing there's not more
I know
than,
they paint
30
them over
kids.
white first, so then you can go over top of that, and then when the year's over, you just paint back over white for the following.
so is that, I'm assuming you guys have dealt with similar situations, you wanna tell us what your experience is?
She's got it pretty well nailed for what the best way to do it is. Yeah, anything that's temporary will be gone by the first snowfall.
Especially when it-
Anything that's semi-temporary is, pretty permanent.
When you say pretty permanent, it means like in the spring,
It's
it'll,
permanent and you can see some of the lines out there. If you look at the parking lot, the yellow
Yep.
lines that are on there were the old stuff that we used to be allowed to put down. That was like an 1/8 inch thick, and all the new paint lasts about a year and a half. So I think even the permanent stuff isn't permanent,
okay,
but
so,
anything that says temporary will be gone very quickly.
okay. So we'll do some research on it, Bailey, but it sounds like you have pretty much tacit approval, if you guys wanna continue moving.
Sorry, I saw that some districts were doing it, and then when they charged the fees, some of them went to a fundraiser, and the other piece went to, they kept a portion to have somebody come in and clean up the, I don't know how they do it, if they pressure wash it or whatever, but they had them redo the parking lot over the summer.
We'll just
So
make
maybe
Lucas do it.
in the summer. Not repaint it, but
I
they
really
whatever they
hope-
did.
I really hope he watches this meeting.
His name's mentioned more in this meeting than usually an
so Dave, do they have,
executive ed.
do students have assigned parking spots now, or they do not? They be paying for the assigned
Right,
parking
so who's
They
gonna
do not have assigned
oversee,
spots.
who gets what parking spot?
You have to get a parking permit, correct?
Yeah, that's a sticker on your car.
Yep. How many students do you think would participate in something like this?
Would this be seniors only, or would this be?
I know some districts do seniors
I'd say
only.
there's
Senior
probably
only.
12 to 15 current drivers right now, but that could increase in ongoing year.
As the year goes on.
With, licensing and stuff.
Yeah, so I guess let's see where it takes us.
I know somebody reached out over the summer, and I said, talk to the advisors about it, the parent did, so.
I know OESJ just did it this fall, so I'll talk to the superintendent and see.
Look at senior right at
I
Pastor.
heard they're gonna start talking.
Thanks, man, we better get on it, because the bad weather's coming. Deer season.
All right, anybody have any other questions for Bailey? All right, move on to recommended items. Item 8.01 through 17.81. Anybody need anything pulled or discussion on anything? Motion to approve those by Ed, seconded by Kelly. All in favor? All right, now I need a motion to go into executive session to have a personnel item, the contract item. Motion by Heath, seconded by John. All in favor? Aye? All right, thank you. There'll be no action taken afterwards.